Welcome to Beyond the Boardroom, the podcast for leaders, change makers, and purpose-driven souls who believe business can be both powerful and human. I'm your host, Jen Demiri, founder of JD Consulting, culture shaper, connection creator, and champion for authentic, connected leadership. Here we go deeper than metrics and meetings. We explore the real stories, raw moments, and bold ideas that shape how we lead and who we become in the process. From workplace culture to conscious strategy, from self-leadership to systems that truly serve, this is where heart meets business. So grab a coffee, take a breath, and join me as we go beyond the boardroom. Welcome back to Beyond the Boardroom, Leading with Purpose and Connection. I'm your host, Jen Demiri, and today I'm sitting down with someone whose story spans elite sport, global media, business leadership, and deep community impact. Troy Gray. Troy, hi. Troy is a former AFL footballer turned award-winning entrepreneur, television personality, and founder of Gray Advisory, a company built on global relationships and exclusive investment opportunities. With more than 25 years across international television, business development, philanthropy, and major events, he has become known as a dynamic connector, someone who brings people, ideas, and opportunities together in a way that creates real, lasting impact. After transitioning from the AFL, Troy carved out a remarkable career in media, hosting and producing television programs broadcast around the world. He's worked alongside some of the most influential names in entertainment, sport, and business, and built a network that now fuels his advisory work at the highest levels. Troy's work now sits at the intersection of financial well-being, leadership, culture, and human connection, helping people unlock opportunities money alone can't buy. But beyond business and broadcasting, Troy's heart is firmly in service. He is the founder of Strikeout Suicide, a national campaign dedicated to mental health, connection, and community awareness. His advocacy work has touched thousands of lives and reflects his core belief that resilience, compassion, and human connection matter more than anything. In our conversation today, we're talking personal branding, leadership reinvention, courage, mental health, and why connection is at the center of meaningful growth in business and in life. Troy's hope for every listener is simple but powerful, that no matter where you start or how many times life knocks you down, you can rebuild, reinvent, and rise again. There's always another chapter waiting to be written, and backing yourself is the first step. This is going to be an honest, inspiring, deeply human conversation. So let's dive in. Welcome, Troy.
Hi, Jen. Thank you. That was a lovely introduction. And
well, thanks for being here today. And yes, I want to dive right in. So you've lived multiple lives: athlete, media presenter, entrepreneur, and advocate. When you look back, what was the moment that forced you to reinvent yourself the first time?
Well, I think addressing the first bit, definitely completely different careers, but each one definitely taught me the same thing, and that's that people follow energy and they don't follow titles. So if I look back, like football taught me resilience, and television taught me communication, and then business taught me responsibility. So I think what I'm being taught here and what I'm seeing is I'm not necessarily interested in being busy. I'm interested in being useful, and you are a connector. You're someone that understands that. So the reinvention, regardless of what sector I'm working in, is really coming back to who do I know? What is my network like? How do I use my network to connect others? So essentially, it's like a lot of these people are building bridges, and my role now is to put people, where's that coming from? Excuse me.
That's
I've got
okay.
it. Oh, sorry. That was really bad from me. My phone was sitting idle, and it was hidden, and it was ringing, and I couldn't see where it was coming from. So there's the example of connecting. That's someone trying to connect with me, and me then putting them on hold because, yeah, it's really I suppose being accessible, and then making sure that if we're trying to put traffic on those bridges, then it's benefiting both the person that I'm speaking with, the person that's interested in building their brand or their industry, and then that very industry that
Yeah,
I'm connecting
yeah,
with to bring them
right.
business.
And I'm just curious as well because you see it in the media all the time that many athletes struggle with their identity after sport. So, what was the transition like for you internally, not just professionally?
Yeah, very tough, I must admit, because I basically came out of school, went straight into elite professional sport. You're surrounded by others, you're guided and told where to be and what to do. And, that's a great thing and it is essential. But if it doesn't work out
Mm,
as you perhaps were planned, and for me, that there were 6 years of elite football, I
mm,
would have loved to have had more than that. But when you're told that your services are no longer required, you essentially are put in a position where
mm,
post school you didn't study, you haven't had
mm,
what we would classify as a normal job, and you now are in your mid 20s and you're almost having to reinvent yourself from scratch. So that just required a lot of dedication and a lot of focus. And I think that's something that um, I definitely harnessed quite quickly is to say, right, my focus has always been a specific goal. That won't change. So now, what is that new
yeah,
goal and
right.
how do I get
And
myself
please
there?
correct me if I'm wrong. If I look at elite sport, at least in Australia, for men there's often the focus and that is their full-time employment, while a lot of women when they do have a professional sport that they play, they still have a full-time job on the side. So I feel there's a bit of a difference from that perspective. It's easier for women to not just identify themselves with that sport, while I believe men really identify with that particular sport that they're in and often don't look beyond that. While then, from a remuneration perspective, men are definitely looked after better than women. So, how do you feel about that comment? And again, it's very much an uneducated comment on my end because I
Yeah.
have to admit, I'm not that much into the sport. However, I'm really interested in you and you as a person and what you stand for these days. So, but yeah, tell me your thoughts on that.
You're probably correct.
Mm,
The times are changing, though. The disparity between the ability to earn lots of money through sport is definitely changed. So, regardless of what sex you are, it all comes
mm,
down to your marketability and your talents. Definitely when I was playing, so predominantly, in the 90s, football was played by men. There was no female league, and those that were trying to forge a career, if you were female in things like basketball and netball and athletics, all some of the most remarkable
mm,
athletes coming out of Australia in particular, some of the best in the world. But as you said, very hard to
mm,
make a living as opposed to a number of sporting pursuits that were undertaken by men, me, and other mates of mine from school that went into the various rugby codes. There was money there. Now, it wasn't big like it is now, but it was definitely enough to prevent us
yeah.
from having to have a secondary job. So your point is very valid, is that our focus was basically on training, on match day and accomplishing our
Mm,
sporting pursuits to the maximum. Whereas the female athletes coming through, a lot of them, yes, would have to study and would have to have secondary income. So they were jobs and they would have to train around those jobs. So if it didn't work out, they were perhaps they were better suited or they had greater skills now to get on with the next phase of
mm,
life. Some of the guys are coming out and then they're no longer have the ability to earn a dollar, and they don't know anything else other than that particular sport. So, yeah, it's a massive learning curve, but one that's definitely changed. And we talk about connectivity. Sport is a great, I suppose, catalyst to showcase that change where we're now surrounded by the right people. So, it's not just about can you kick a football? It is about, right, when you're earning this money, where is it going to go? How will it be invested? You've got people around you helping you with those pursuits. What else can we teach you above and beyond what you're learning in the locker room? What does life post your sporting career look like? So, yeah, and even from the mental health side, there's the right people and the right connections that are helping you not only through that phase of your life at that given point, but what's going to happen post your sporting
Well, that's
career and for the
definitely
rest of your
great to
life.
hear. So, what would you say was one of the most important traits that you learned or that you took away from sport into your career moving forward and into today?
I think the biggest thing is about leadership. I think I found out in sport and then going into post sport career, but leadership is less about direction and it's more about permission. So it's giving permission for people to think, for people to speak up, and for those people to understand that they belong. And I think this is a really important thing. And it doesn't obviously we're speaking sport, but now my strong focus is definitely in the corporate space. And you're not just building culture; you have to reveal it through behaviour. So leadership, in essence, is what happens when things are falling apart. We know that anyone can lead when things are going well, but what happens when things aren't? And I saw that at the sports level, and I've definitely seen that in the corporate space. Whether I'm underneath someone's leadership or I have been the leader myself and things haven't gone to plan. So you definitely got to be on your game and know how to lead when things aren't going well, as good as and as
Yeah.
strong as when
And I have
things
to
are going
agree with
beautifully.
you on the point of, leadership is about letting other people speak their mind, have everyone having input and really working it all together to create something bigger. And that is not only in sport, that is definitely in
Oh,
corporate as well. And I feel a lot of people in leadership roles often really run their own agenda rather than really listening to the people that are actually at the front line, that are in the, let's call it trenches on the day to day, and are really working with those situations. And rather than listening to them and their experience and expertise, sometimes people in leadership roles are so far removed from that and want to run their own agenda without really realizing what's actually going on.
100%. I've spent my life connecting rooms. So whether that's the locker room or the board room, green rooms in the television industry, and now in investment rooms. And you definitely are finding out that the best leaders are creating safety, and the best businesses are creating meaning, and that helps everyone that's aligned with that one cause, that one entity. So yeah, that connection and that leadership and how that's harnessed and how that's utilized and how that's spread, it's ultra important, and it's something that every day I'm learning and every day I'm seeing done differently and trying to now work out how
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is done
absolutely.
best.
I agree with that. Now, I do want to come back to that. However, I do have a couple of questions beforehand in regards to personal branding and owning your story. So, you've built a brand that spans sport, media, business, impact in so many areas that I believe are so important, like suicide prevention, mental health. How do you define personal brand in a world that is full of noise and also a lot of performance, especially with social media and, yeah, things, that are not actually what they seem to be?
Well, that's hard because I would imagine that everyone would agree that life
Mm,
can be smoke and mirrors, and that happens from a personal capacity. And you mentioned social media. We don't post very often, if at all,
mm,
the things that aren't going well. But we're very happy to when we're on holidays and when we've won an award, and to make
yeah.
sure that everyone knows that I'm living the perfect life. So I think that's really important to note, that you just have to remember that life shouldn't be led online. I think personal connectivity, personal interaction, it definitely led me into that space. You spoke about Strikeout Suicide. That is a campaign that I built that is very much about destigmatizing
Mm,
the word suicide, highlighting the fact that it does happen, but also giving people the tools to know that you need to be around others. You need the ability to talk to others. You also have to have
mm.
the ability to listen. But that all comes from just being honest, being open, and being raw. And you can't always do that if you're just portraying the very
Yeah,
best
yeah.
on social media.
And now talking about Strikeout Suicide, so that campaign is deeply personal, and I would assume it's deeply personal. And also, I think it's very needed. What moved you to take action on that?
So, what moved me is my personal experience, and that is unfortunately when I was at the height of my football career. So, I was in the third or fourth year of playing in the AFL. I was out on the training track in Sydney, and I was asked by my coaches to leave the training track and to come inside. And I had five or six of the executive team tell me that my father had passed away. And now it's something I can talk about openly now, but that's only happened in the last probably 3 years, where I found out that the cause of death was my father taking his own life. And, I didn't speak about it for nearly 30 years, basically buried that completely. It was way easier to tell people that the cause of death was from an accident or from a health complication rather than something, I suppose, that we call so dramatic. It makes me feel uncomfortable when I was talking to people about it, and it would make them probably feel
Yeah.
even more uncomfortable. So the whole change in society is really evident where we do understand that
Yeah.
mental health exists. I was very surprised when I decided to come out about this that I kept going to events and hearing that, suicide in Australia is twice the national road toll. It's hard to even understand because my background includes television. And if you look at television or different media platforms, we hear and see a lot about how many people are dying on our roads. And we're given tools to try and be smarter and
Mhm.
road safe. But twice that toll is being taken daily by people that really we sweep that under the carpet. We find it awkward to discuss. We don't want to highlight that this is, in fact, a problem, not just in Australia, but
Mm.
throughout the world. So that led me to that phase of saying, well, I need to start speaking about it. I need to tell people about my experience and I need to learn. And what I'm learning is the more I talk about it, the more I'm personally learning. And it's quite cathartic because I'm also hearing from others and we
Yeah,
can all
yeah.
help each other.
So, what was it like in the aftermath of that? So, what has been going through your head, if you don't mind sharing? And I know that you said that you're a lot more open about it now. I still want to ask for permission, of course, and yeah, I would love for you to share whatever you're willing to share, for the audience to have a bit of a better understanding.
Sure. Well, I look back and definitely I just switched off. I told myself that it wasn't real, even when things were unfolding where it was clearly real. I still chose to not let it, I suppose, play a major factor in my life. So I was just seeing, hearing, and watching things unfold, but basically it was just being parked in the back of my mind. I mean, from the funeral to going back into the sporting environment to not talking about it at all. So you know, the people that are listening at the moment that have been through it, they will know that is definitely not
Mm,
the way to handle something. It took its toll 100%. But, you know, we don't know these things. You only know what you know, and you only deal with what you can deal with. And the best way for me to deal with that was to
mm,
park it. And that just put it to the side, forget about it, and maybe deal with it again down the track. And now that down the track for me was
mm,
nearly 30 years. So what I learned from that is the importance of making sure you're openly communicating with people. I mean, we talk about it a lot, but I don't think a lot of us action that. We're very happy to say to someone, "Are you okay?" And most of us, if we're asked that question, are not going to then say, "No, I'm not." We're going to say, "Yeah, I'm okay. How about you?" "Yeah, I'm good." And then we move
mm.
on with the next conversation. So sometimes, and it will never be easy, but just checking in on those around you, keeping an eye out for signs and symptoms, but most importantly, just knowing that if someone is not at their best, that we don't judge them for that, or we don't say, "Oh my God, here they go again. I wish I hadn't have asked." Because sometimes if you don't give them a shoulder to lean on, or you weren't that ear to listen, um, it might put that person in a more vulnerable position. And those actions that people are taking sometimes come from the inability to converse with others or have
Yeah,
others
and I
listen to them.
think there's still such a stigma around suicide, but also around other things. And very often, other things are actually intertwined with something similar to that. So, and as you were saying, reaching out to the people around you, yes, there's Are You Okay Day. However, one day a year, in my opinion, is just not enough. And being able to also have those challenging conversations that we may not want to have, and though we care about the person enough to have them, what can we do to back ourselves and educate ourselves on how to have those conversations in a safe space and in a safe way, and also knowing when we maybe need to reach out for help to follow through on that conversation. I think that's really, really essential.
Absolutely. And it comes back to connections and the importance that our connections and our networks play in our personal lives and in our business life. I mean, I sort of go back to a lot of things I've seen. I suppose one thing that's really evident, whether it fits into what we're talking about at
Yeah,
this particular moment, is that the smartest people in the room aren't always the
yeah,
most effective, but the most emotionally intelligent people nearly
yeah.
always are. So I would suggest that going into 2026, you know, a lot of our leadership will be defined by empathy and transparency and whether people feel safe to
Yeah.
tell you the truth. And and that can also play out into our everyday lives, you know, in our domestic situations, like how
Mm,
comfortable are you to tell your
mm.
partner or your family or have your children liaise with you openly. It's a really tough one. And as I said before, speaking is one thing, but a lot of us also have to learn the tools of listening, because listening can be as important, if not more important, than the talking
Absolutely.
part.
I agree with you on the listening component. So many people, like, they listen to answer, so they keep interrupting people because they really, really want to get the point across that they want to make or that they want to add to the conversation, rather than actually finishing, listening till the end, and then actually, being able to potentially even give better input into the conversation, rather than just wanting to bring the point across, or learning something from that conversation as well.
It is. That's right, and I think a lot of us are
Mm,
guilty of that, me included. Is you're being told a story, and you know you're thinking of how your story is actually
mm,
better, or someone's telling you about an issue they're having, and you've already worked out that I've got the answer to that issue, and if you just listened, I could make you feel better. It's not always the way. In fact, it's rarely ever the way. So yeah, I think that we've all got a lot to learn, and we just need to understand that We don't always know everything, and I'm pretty sure we've all heard that we learn something new every day. And if we take that philosophy, learning something along the way, whether it's in business or in life, or it's personal or it's public, it's going to put us
Yeah.
in good stead.
I do want to keep going on the emotional intelligent leadership because I strongly believe that is something that we both really, really care about. However, I have one more question for you in regards to people struggling in silence. What are signs that we often miss?
Well, and this is a really good question, but a
Yeah.
really tough one, because if I was to look at all the instances I've come across and the learnings that I've had, very rarely are two stories or two circumstances the same. So, about what we're looking for, I think one of the obvious signs is people that are quite introverted or lack or don't want human connection, and we shy away from leaving the safe space of home. Really important for us, even if it's on our own, is to get out and about and to look up in the sky and look around and see the beauty that this world offers. But if so, trying to answer your question there is a really tough one, because we probably, most of us, know people that from the outside looking in, their life seemed perfect. They might have families, they might be well off financially, always laughing, someone that lights up a room, but they might be battling something that we just simply can't know and would never have known, even if we were to ask. So realistically, it's just keeping the conversations flowing and just making sure that or you tell people that you're always there. Give me a call, come and see me, knock on my door at any time. And I think that if we do that and we empower people to feel safe around us, we may well see the things that are bothering them, or they might feel comfortable enough to tell us. And again, because I know we're talking about personal, but that definitely translates into business, because gosh, there's a lot of people I'm sure we all work with that are having their own challenges, but can they just come and knock on your office door or peer over the cubicle into yours and just say, I need to talk to you about something? Or are we too busy or too self-focused or self-centered to worry about others' problems because we're probably going through our own?
I agree with that. And in a way, I'm glad that you said there is no, generic way of things to look out for. It's really, you know, connecting on a genuine level with people, really keeping the conversation going, keeping, an ear open as well. I recently saw a reel, I think it was with Simon Sinek, where there was a conversation that he had with someone talking about someone. I think also it was around suicide, or about someone not feeling great in life. I can't quite remember, but it was sort of then someone saying, "Well, why didn't you say anything beforehand?" And the person was then saying, "Well, I actually said, like, do you have time? Do you have time? But you were always busy." So that way they sort of created in a way like a safe word, so, or like an emergency word, so that way when that word was texted, the other person knew straight away, okay, I need to drop everything and really need to make sure that I spend some time with you and listen to you because you really, really need help, you're struggling.
Yeah. Well, look, again, it comes back to the one size fits all, but it also
Yeah.
helps me look at the next phase of
Yeah.
my life. And you spoke about it in the introduction, where I'm now, I've got a business called Grey Advisory, and that's definitely 100% built on the idea that connection is the greatest commodity we have, but connection is also something that we use the least.
Yeah.
And that sounds really strange to say, but we all have the ability to connect, introduce, to talk, but we become so insular sometimes, and so one-dimensional that once we've got those blinkers on, we forget to call upon the greater connections that we have, and how those connections can actually help. And that is my strong suit now, is understanding that, as I said, get that connection is the greatest commodity we have. So, if you want a door to be opened, well, who do we know that has that key? And if we look around, if we search around and we ask, you'll be surprised at what doors we can open and how that helps us individually, personally and
Yeah.
professionally.
Yeah. And going back to Grey Advisory now, so you said you're sitting at the intersection of trust and relationship building and opportunity and connecting. So what's the core philosophy that drives the way that you do business? I mean, yes, you said connection, but what made you come to that conclusion?
Because people I see are always looking for opportunity. And it started firstly in finance and property, something that I had to learn a lot about. But in my networks and in my greater database, I had connections there that I could introduce to other parties. So by having strategic referrals, that could help me. But effectively, what's happened is we aren't a finance or property business. We're actually what I call an empowerment business. So we give people access to opportunities that money can't buy. So we're not actually selling anything, but we just introduce the right people to the right moment and everyone wins.
Yeah, I love that. Especially when you know people in certain areas and then you realize, oh my God, these people would actually be really great together. This would be a really good connection. I think that's so important and so essential. And so often people gatekeep because they want to keep the person just to themselves or things like that, without realizing if we share the connection, if we share knowledge, if we share wisdom, we can actually benefit to a larger extent all of us rather than just one person or two people.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a big market. It's a big opportunity because it's the human side of wealth and decision making. And I spoke to you about the bridge. A
Yeah.
lot of individuals and a lot of businesses, they have built bridges, but what they don't have on those bridges is the traffic. So where can I find that? Who can help me? Don't be afraid to ask. And in the end, people, I've found out, they don't necessarily make financial decisions with spreadsheets. A lot of people make decisions with emotion. So that's safety and confidence and trust and hope. And it all comes back into leadership and financial well-being. They're in the same conversation. Both are about clarity, direction, and courage. And I really feel that that strategic connection, those introductions, we find out that building when we're building clients, we're also looking for money. I don't think we shy away from that. But wealth isn't money. Wealth isn't options. Wealth is more about freedom and being able to choose a life you actually want. And sometimes doing that, you have to open yourself up to saying, who can help me? And generally when we do that and we are introduced or we do get access to these referrals, things happen quicker. And we don't have to, as you rightfully said, hold all these connections close to our chest and not share them, because essentially by sharing them, we're opening up far more doors. That opens up far more options. And in a general sense, I think it benefits us professionally, personally, and financially.
So I guess as the connector and someone who brings the right people together, what makes someone easy to back from your perspective?
Do you mean from a potential client asking for my
Yeah,
assistance, or the people that I
a
introduce them
little bit
to?
of both, I guess. So, I guess it is more of a two-part question.
Yeah, I think the first bit is 100% anyone and everyone makes a good client, because people are genuine by coming to me, whether they're asking for something from a personal perspective or for their business. I see that they have a problem or a need, and I can, through my database, both in Australia and internationally, I can connect them. As far as who makes the best people for me to connect individuals to that are coming to me, or businesses that are coming to me, that's definitely a vetting process. Because if I'm introducing you to the wrong deals, the wrong investments, the wrong people, and that doesn't go well, that will reflect on my personal brand. And I know you're big on personal branding, and For me, it's 100% ultra imperative that your brand isn't affected. Now, I've been part of entities in the past where personally and through a business entity, our brand has been affected. Things haven't gone well. We've relied on the wrong people or the wrong information. And even if it is not your
Mm.
fault, the fallout from anything that doesn't go well will ultimately come back and reflect poorly on you. Now, it's really imperative for my position now going forward is that everything I do, it's vetted, it's looked at, it's strategic, but it's also something that is going to work. And in particular, for any client, you don't want to refer them to someone that's not going to be able to assist
Yeah.
them, or if they do assist them, it's a short-term fix. We're looking for the right strategic referrals and connections to enable long-term growth and
Mm.
success.
I think it's a little bit of a challenge sometimes as well. Sometimes you meet people that they're really, really great people, and from a personality and people perspective, they would be really, really a great match. However, there's maybe like a lack of skills or a backing in other areas to support each other. While sometimes from that perspective, skills and backing in other areas is great, but maybe one of the people is not necessarily the greatest, or there could be a clash of personalities or things like that. So I think it's really, really important to know who to introduce to whom, because for example, I've known really great people that are great at their jobs, and the personality is just a little bit interesting. So I wouldn't necessarily introduce them to someone where I know the personalities wouldn't match, even though the skills would match, because sometimes the personality is just so much more important than the skills in that instance. Um, as well
Yeah.
as when there is like great personality but no skills in some in like a particular area, or I know someone that has also has great personality but has better skills, then I would generally use that person over the other.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to hang your hat on being the ultimate connector, and that's definitely what Grey Advisory, that's a big calling card for us. It is making sure that you don't just provide the referral and then disappear.
Yeah.
Effectively, it's a warm lead. It's generated. There's an introduction, but you keep yourself accessible so that that party, your client, can actually give you real time
Yeah.
feedback and say, "Hey, the people you've connected me with, they seem good, or they don't seem good, or I've got these concerns, or there's a couple of things I need clarified." I can actually do
Yeah.
that. So I'm not finding an opportunity, handing you over, and then disappearing. We're actually there for you to feel
Mm.
comfortable, come back, and use us as a sounding board. So if we feel that that strategic connection isn't quite
Mm.
working, then we can introduce you to another, and we can also alleviate that pain of having to sever that tie, because we will do that on your behalf, and it doesn't prevents any awkwardness or any ongoing drama. So realistically, yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. You have to be very careful about who you refer people to, and the match has to be it has to be idyllic, and it has to work for all
Yeah.
parties. Strategic connectors, these great referrals, they only work if every single person, be they myself, the client, or the industry that I'm connecting them with, are not walking away with a smile saying that was worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious what your thought is on the biggest misunderstandings most people have about personal branding.
Yeah, personal branding, I suppose, is because I see it all the time now on social media, is that anyone can be anything. We have a lot of these so-called influencers that can travel the world
Mm.
and paint a picture of success and wealth and knowledge. Not saying they aren't, but I can pretty much guarantee that most haven't got or haven't lived up to the credentials that they're publicly displaying. So From my perspective, a personal brand is someone that doesn't necessarily constantly have to tell you how great they are. I go back to, in a public setting, you don't often have wealthy people trying to convince you of how much money they
Yeah.
have. It's generally the other way around. It's the person that's telling you about how much their latest handbag cost or their latest holiday was, or they are looking for kudos in a whole another different way. So I believe personal brand is people that they do things. They actually accomplish things. They've got a strong track record. They have valid testimonials, and I think as we progress into the world of AI and things seem to be a little bit too easy to create fake personas, just make sure you're really aware of, is someone genuine? Have they been through the ups? Have they been through the downs? Are they aware of how to bounce back? Are they resilient?
Yeah.
And I suppose one of the things, and trying to look at me, because it's easier to talk about something personally than others, but what's the unique value proposition, or what makes me or Grey Advisory different? You've said before, I operated at the intersection of leadership and media and sport and business for 25 years. So what I do know now is how to engage a room, how to energize people, how to simplify complex decisions. And the one big thing is my network is global, and my mission is to use that network to lift others. So I'm not a consultant, I'm a connector. And I think if you can see that person is real and they have those skills, then perhaps worth talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. And yeah, I believe people that get to work with you are really lucky to be introduced to others. So yeah. So in regards to leadership, what do you think the next generation of leaders need to unlearn before they can lead well?
That's not all about them. I think leadership was always that if you're at the top of the tree, you can act and say what you want without repercussion. I think that's definitely changing now. I mean, if you can't communicate things simply and with a smile, perhaps you don't understand it deeply enough, or you don't understand those around you well enough. I mean, the best leaders definitely create safety, and then through that, their businesses will create meaning. So, I always think about the right opportunity at the wrong time is still the wrong opportunity. And that's why guidance and leadership matters. It's just making sure that you're able to tell people how it really is. But, you can be serious and do it with a smile. You can actually have grievances, but still have people leaving the room, making them feel wanted, needed, and trusted. And it's not an easy thing to do. And to find the right leader that can hold all of those emotions in check. They're very much valued, I would imagine. So that's where we're seeing things change.
Yeah. And I'm curious, when you think about your work, both with Grey Advisory, but also with, the philanthropy work that you do outside of that, what impact do you most want to make in the next decade?
I'd say it comes back to a very similar purpose, and that's helping people unlock the version of themselves they know is possible, but they haven't reached yet. So that can come definitely very much in that professional sense, and in that mental space. So who do you want to be? What are you looking to do? Do you have that belief? So we're going to unlock the version of you that you know is possible, but you just haven't reached. And how do you reach it? And how do we give you the tools to accomplish that?
Yeah, great. And so what's one courageous move you wish more leaders would make?
Oh, well, I think they've just got to understand that at the end of the day, people don't necessarily follow strategy. So I think they follow energy, clarity, humanity. So if we can help leaders strengthen their finances, then their culture and their sense of purpose, then we're definitely improving workplaces, and we're actually changing lives as part of that. And that's the kind of work I want to be part of. So, improving the workplace, but changing lives. And, as a leader, if you're doing that, well, kudos to you.
Yeah, yeah. And I see it more and more. I mean, I stepped into this about a year ago, working on leadership development, helping leaders be more self-aware to, create better working environments. And I see more and more people like popping up like mushrooms in a great way, that realized there is more need for human-centered leadership, people first, looking after the other people to lift them up. And I think it's a great thing. I think the more of us that can spread the word and that can, create that impact in the world, in the workplaces, as well as helping people to be those type of leaders in their personal life as well and change their personal life through that. I think the more people bring that to awareness, I think the better.
100%. And as I said earlier, I think next year we can define leadership. We can define it by empathy and transparency, and whether people feel safe to tell you the truth. And if that happens, I think we're on the road to something bigger and better.
Yeah, great. So what's the next chapter for you that you're most excited to write?
Hopefully just giving people the opportunity, no matter where you are in life, to reach out and feel comfortable knowing that you can be helped. And I go back to my Strikeout Suicide campaign, but very much into my professional campaign, where you have to tell people that looking for the next great opportunity isn't risky, but if you're doing it without guidance, then it is. So if we can remove fear and provide clarity and guide clients, from the dream all the way to the doorstep, then that's definitely the DNA that we're really trying to not only create, but to showcase and make sure that everyone can see it, or anyone can see it, but access opportunity. Yeah. And these opportunities are normally locked behind closed doors. Well, I'm saying that we have the key. Great advisory can unlock those doors, and we can partner with people that can help you.
Yeah, great. We are coming towards the end of our little conversation. There's just one thing I want to ask. Is there anything that I haven't addressed that you would really like to talk about, that you would like to take the listeners away today? Is there anything that you feel you want to add to the conversation?
I did a podcast recently, and I found it really powerful to say two things. And one is that we talk about the light at the end of the tunnel, and doesn't matter how you take that. Is it your future job? Is it your life? Is it your marriage? Is it what you're hoping your children do? Is it your personal battles? We talk about the light at the end of the tunnel. Everyone's tunnel is a different length. So what I'm trying to say there is, if you're moving forward, we're trying to prevent you from going back. And a lot of people will keep moving through their tunnel, and they will say there's no light there, and they will turn around and start walking in the other direction, when in 2 or 3 steps time, they might have rounded a bend and seen the tunnel. And it's really simple, but it seems to have had a cut through that doesn't matter where you are in life. Just because you can't see it, don't think you can't accomplish it. Just keep moving forward. And if you do move forward, you're giving yourself the best opportunity to achieve those dreams, and to make sure that whatever's happening now and whatever drama you're going through, you're only going to see something come to fruition if you take those steps forward and you're not turning around and going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I agree. Like, keep going, keep moving, one step at a time. It's like the saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So just keep going. You'll get there.
Yeah. And ultimately, all we can control in life is how we respond to life. Yeah. And that, to me, is something that I'm trying to live my ups and downs through, and making sure that people understand that, as a human, we all make mistakes. But it's about picking yourself back up and how do you respond to life? And for me, we talk about leadership, but it's less about direction, more about permission, and permission for people to think, people to speak up, people to belong, and then not just building a culture, but revealing it through our own behaviour.
Yeah. And I have one more question. You mentioned wealth earlier, and that wealth is not just financial. What does wealth mean to you personally?
I think wealth has changed in a big way, and in particular since COVID times. I think wealth now is more about freedom. It's being able to choose the life you want, and I'm not just saying that that requires money. Sometimes that just requires us to have a more positive mindset and to say, what is it that I really want to do today? What is it that I really want to do in my spare time? What is it I really want to do as a job? And just arming yourself with tools and providing yourself with clarity and direction and courage to try and accomplish those things or to make those things happen. So I think wealth used to just be about money. And about what options that money gave you, but now I honestly think it's just more about instilling clarity, direction, and courage, and giving us tools to choose the life we actually want. And that doesn't always involve money. It just involves time and dedication, and perhaps just setting yourself a goal.
Yeah, and maybe just a touch of presence as well. So being present with the people around you, and spending the time with them.
Oh, I don't think anyone would disagree that spending time with your loved ones, your family, has to be the most or at the top of your priority. And I think if you talk to anyone in the health space, if they're doing a wonderful job and nursing people at the end of their life. We've spoken to those people and they've formed some wonderful feedback, but they're basically telling us that someone that's nearing the end of life very rarely says, I wish I had more money, or I wish I had made more money, but they may well say, I wish I had spent more time with my family, or I wish I had have given my time to those that showed me the most love.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Well, Troy, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I loved your insights on everything leadership connection, and it was great to hear more of what you do at Grey Advisory. So I will pop in all your details into the show notes as well, so people can reach out to you and connect with you. So thank you again for your time today, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you again in person next year.
Thank you, Jan, and to all your listeners. I appreciate you having me as a guest.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Beyond the Boardroom. I'm truly grateful to have you here. So if today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to follow the show, leave a review, or share it with someone who'd find it valuable. Your support helps us spread the message of purposeful, connected leadership even further. So until next time, take care, stay curious, and lead with heart.